We have been all about inclusion, all about developing human capital. In fact, I read a statistic the other day that something like 11% of the Fortune 500 companies in the world are led by Indians. And by my best estimate, about 30% of those Indians are Tamils. So that just goes to show you. I would say what's different this time is that we have now reached a convergence. Through things like IoT, we are collecting data at granularity and at scale that we have never seen before, and it's coming continuously. So whether we're talking about AI or generative AI or general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, as Ganesh spoke about, we are definitely in an era of profound change. And this change is going to last for a long time. This is not something that's like an on-off switch. It's not like yesterday was the era of pre-AI and today's the era of AI. In many ways, this has been an evolution that is coming for a long time. But also in terms of the amount of data, the transferability of it, the access to it, the hosting of it, the notion of clouds, where you don't have to spend $100 million to be able to access $100 million of computing power. You can actually buy 10 minutes of it and do all the pre-work with other things and then just get 10 minutes of it at a very reasonable cost. So these network effects where you can find resources all around the world. If you had infinite amounts of data and relatively low cost or easily accessible processing capability, there is no human being in any field that is inherently as good as a machine that has infinite access to data. Now, these are very dangerous things because, of course, on the one hand, we don't want to give up autonomy to a machine. On the other hand, as I say, particularly in fields like law and medicine, the enormous upside of having relatively infinite memory, relatively ubiquitous access is unbelievable. Happy to say that efforts that I initiated back when I was finance minister, now under something called the TNE Governance Agency, which is in our IT department, when the Chief Minister decided to expand the scholarship scheme from Pudumai Pen to Tamil Pudulvan, then our machines were auto-generating the list of eligible people without waiting for people to say that I am applying for this. I must start by saying that I'm very happy to be back in WCC and in this auditorium. I think the first time I came here was 5-6 years ago as an MLA for RISE event. I've had the occasion to come back to WCC maybe 5 or 6 times since then for various events, for quizzes, for conferences, for other reasons. And every time I come, I remark upon the fact that much of our progress as a society in Tamil Nadu is attributable to contributions of the Christian missionaries who came and set up brilliant institutions like the Women's Christian College and changed our society because, as we all know now, economically and developmentally, the progress of women is probably the single biggest driver of the progress of a society. So the fact that they focused on women's education in multiple places, I think, is commendable. I had, by coincidence, the opportunity to be at Stella Maris College yesterday for some other international AI conference. And I'm very pleased to see that such eminent colleges are continuously keeping their students at the cutting edge of what is going on in science and technology and other fields. I also remarked that I had the opportunity to go to CMC Vellore for a convocation, and I noted that it was probably, to my understanding, the only medical college I know of, at least, maybe certainly in India, which was started solely for women, and then they eventually let men in. So, these kinds of things have profoundly shaped our society by giving access to education for women in an equitable way. and at a world-class level. I'm also reminded that the progress of our society has been driven so much by relatively universal access to education. On last Friday, the 3rd of January, I was the chief guest at the College of Engineering Guindy, the oldest engineering college in India, at their annual global alumni meet. And then subsequently on Friday or Saturday, I was also the guest of honor at my own alumni meet, NIT Trichy. And my fellow kind of distinguished guest was Thiru N. Chandrasekharan, the chairman of Tata Sons, who graduated from NIT Trichy in 1987, the same year I did. He got his MCA, I got my BTech honors. He was one of the few people who stayed behind. At that point, Tamil Nadu was producing so many brilliant engineers, but most of us went overseas. And many of us did well overseas, but I was also very pleased to see that people like Chandra, who stayed back, had gone on to have such a deep impact on Indian industry and Indian progress. The story of Tamil Nadu is really the story of our human capital. Ever since the first Justice Party governments of the 1920s till today, the notion of compulsory elementary education back then for boys and girls, now all the way to these kinds of events at these kinds of premier institutions. We have been all about inclusion, all about developing human capital. In fact, I read a statistic the other day that something like 11% of the Fortune 500 companies in the world are led by Indians, and by my best estimate, about 30% of those Indians are Tamils. So that just goes to show you roughly how important our human capital is. Our Chief Minister recognized this early in our government in 2021 when we set up the Global Economic Advisory Council for him. He mentioned in his opening speech that he envisions Tamil Nadu to be, for the next generation at least, the premier source of human capital in the world, and all our efforts, all our schemes, from the Pudumai Pens, Tamil Pudalvans, Nan Mudalvan, all the schemes are aimed at making sure that our people develop and progress in a global environment where there's a huge shortfall of young people around the world. Qualified young people are going to drive the future, drive the economic empowerment, not just of their home countries, but of their country's position in the global economy. And India in general, but Tamil Nadu in particular, this is our greatest strength. The reason I say that is that in many ways, Father Jagat Gasper has been kind of prescient. He has realized the value of this Tamil human capital around the world and has started this initiative of the RISE many years ahead of time. I remember attending the first RISE conference, I think it was in Madurai, many years ago. And I remember attending the first international conference of the RISE in Malaysia at Cyberjaya at Tan Sri Palan's University. So I think in that sense, this is the kind of integrating force or initiative that really gets us to leverage the capital that we've already developed and has gone on to succeed all over the world, like my friend Cecil, like Ganesh Ramachandran, like Tan Sri Pawan, like Sid Ahmed, who can come back and connect and inspire and guide a lot of the talent that we have here, and then facilitate for the entrepreneurs, particularly the MSMEs who may not have access. This RISE can be a wonderful channel or avenue or integrator, accelerator, I would say. In that sense, I'm happy we've opened or inaugurated yet another initiative around deep tech. I don't think there's much for me to say about the topic itself after experts like Cecil and Ganesh have spoken. I will just say that I'm old enough to have seen the evolution of technology and the evolution of AI or the nth coming, the third or fourth coming of AI in my time. I used to be a chemical engineer, I used to be in math modeling. My original master's was in operations research. And I've seen the evolution of algorithms, of heuristics, of computing. I would say what's different this time is that we have now reached a convergence. Through things like IoT, we are collecting data at granularity and at scale that we have never seen before, and it's coming continuously. The ability to store, to augment, to annotate, to, I would say, parse this data has become so good that now we have seen the advent of big data, which was kind of the founding block for deep tech. And then, of course, once you have that much data, if you have the enormous processing capability that comes from things like the GPUs now and eventually quantum computing, then you have the capacity to do the kinds of automated or autonomous, I would say, rather than automated, autonomous processing, insights, decision making, and outcomes which were never seen before. So whether we're talking about AI or generative AI or general intelligence, artificial general intelligence, as Ganesh spoke about, we are definitely in an era of profound change. And this change is going to last for a long time. This is not something that's like an on-off switch. It's not like yesterday was the era of pre-AI and today's the era of AI. In many ways, this has been an evolution that is coming for a long time. And right now, the bottlenecks are not just about the design of things like quantum computers or the Willow chip, as Ganesh pointed out, is a huge breakthrough because of its auto-correction of the errors in processing. But also in terms of the amount of data, the transferability of it, the access to it, the hosting of it, the notion of clouds, where you don't have to spend $100 million to be able to access $100 million of computing power. You can actually buy 10 minutes of it and do all the pre-work with other things and then just get 10 minutes of it at a very reasonable cost. So these network effects, where you can find resources all around the world, is going to open up a lot of innovation. But the reality is there is probably going to be 10 to 20 years before our lives are profoundly changed. We can start to see the change now, but it's probably going to be 10 to 20 years before our lives, before the nature of our jobs are profoundly changed. There's going to be a lot more energy that has to be generated to power all these data centers and these computers. There's going to be a lot more chips that have to be manufactured or quantum computers that have to be manufactured that can operate at room temperature and not need special environments. And there's going to be a lot more algorithms and a lot more insights that need to be done. For the foreseeable future, I think this is only going to be an increase in the employment opportunities. Change, big change in the nature of work, but overall volume of work till we get the machines sophisticated enough to process what the human eye can process. For example, probably takes a machine thousands and thousands of steps and passing of data. Over time, the machines will get better and better, but that's probably not a 1 day, 1 year, 1 decade thing. In my view, it's going to take 1 generation before we can get there. But as somebody pointed out, make no mistake, if you had infinite amounts of data and relatively low cost or easily accessible processing capability, there is no human being in any field that is inherently as good as a machine that has infinite access to data. Let's take things like the legal field or the field of medicine. We can see how machines can process case arguments, and predict likely judgments, not just based on the case law, but based on the track record of that judge, those lawyers, and therefore what is the likely outcome ahead of it being put out. Now, these are very dangerous things because, of course, on the one hand, we don't want to give up autonomy to a machine. On the other hand, as I say, particularly in fields like law and medicine, the enormous upside of having relatively infinite memory, relatively ubiquitous access is unbelievable. I went and opened the Chennai office of an AI company in radiology last year. And what they have is an almost universal set of chest x-rays, one of many things, of the entire country through the public health system. Over time, that machine has learned, because it sees x-rays not just of one person, of many people, but of every person over time, that machine can process an x-ray image, and unlike a human being who's answering a question, normally you go to a doctor, they say take an x-ray, goes to a radiologist, the radiologist trying to answer the question that physician asked, is there an indication of this disease? The machine's not doing that. The machine's looking at the x-ray and saying, what all possible problems or variations or deviations have I seen here? And compared to all the x-rays I've seen in the past, almost every single x-ray, what is likely to be an effect 2 years or 5 years from now if the x-ray looks like this today? No human being in the world has the capacity. Not the best doctor in the world has the capacity, because nobody has infinite memory. So in that sense, you are going to see more and more of such applications. You are going to see more and more. Now, of course, from a government perspective, we want to regulate this. Even if the machine does all this brilliant analysis, the medical profession, the health regulations will say, unless some doctor signs off on it and says, this is the interpretation, I agree. We can't be sending these things out, right? Even though the machines, and of course, once you get to the machine, as they pointed out, the biggest advantage of the machine is it doesn't know the difference between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. and 2 a.m. It doesn't feel tired after lunch. It doesn't have blood circulation variation based on digestion. So at some level, the machine's always going to be better. And at some other level, we're always going to have to regulate and have some human interpretation of it. So in that sense, yesterday I spoke about many of the applications we see in government. We've seen from analyzing customer sentiment to revenue augmentation and taxes to automated anti-corruption measures. We have seen in places like Brazil, pension processing. We have seen in the UK where the machines automatically decide who's there. We have done some of this in many of the schemes that our government has brought, starting when I was finance minister. We started aggregating data that the government held. As you can imagine, in any society, the government is the single biggest holder of data. It knows everything about everybody. It may not be in the right form, but it knows everything about everybody. It knows your birth certificates, your medical records, your education, your community, everything. So if we can put all of these together, we can basically start auto-processing. And I'm happy to say that efforts that I initiated back when I was finance minister, now under something called the TNE Governance Agency, which is in our IT department, when the chief minister decided to expand the scholarship scheme from Pudumai Pen to Tamil Pudulvan, then our machines were auto-generating the list of eligible people without waiting for people to say that I am applying for this. So in that sense, we are doing our own bit. I think there's going to be profound change. I personally see huge opportunity in improving the way government functions and in reducing the friction that citizens who interact with the government often face, from simple frictions like having to travel to a government office or see a government employee not once, maybe more than once, to more insidious problems like rent seeking or gatekeeping. I think all these can be profoundly improved by the application of a lot of these technologies. We have started. I hope we'll be able to do a lot more. So with that, let me wrap up and say that for all of you here, this is going to be a tremendous opportunity to learn, ask a lot of questions. You have brilliant experts who have done this in ways that most people haven't. Think outside the box. As Cecil said, this is a democratizing change. It is going to change the nature. My friend Rajesh Nambiar, who used to run Cognizant, is now the head of NASSCOM. Last time at a conference, he said, do you know what is going to be the most common programming language of the future? And, some people said Python and this and that and everything. He said, no, it's going to be English. because prompt engineering is going to become so important that basically English is going to be the basis on which you interact with the machines. So this is going to be an era of tremendous change, potentially opens up opportunities for non-technical specialists. I'm reminded of a clip somebody sent me of Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, the big GPU chip maker, whose market capitalization also is in the trillions of dollars like Microsoft. And when somebody asked him, what should we be teaching our what kind of computer skills should we be teaching our children? What kind of programming skills will be in the future? I think it was at Davos last year. And he said, the point of these technologies, of big data, of deep tech, of AI, of quantum, is that the machine does all the programming itself. So you don't need to teach them programming. You teach them some basic science like biology or chemistry or philosophy or the law. You teach them the bases for how human society interacts and how science evolves. The programming part, the machine will take care of itself. So that's going to be a big change because we no longer need to have all these years of expertise to be writing programs. The machine will write its own kind of algorithm. In that sense, again, as I say, this is a time for you to be hugely optimistic, but also hugely curious, ask a lot of questions, change your way of thinking. I'm also happy to say that tomorrow, day after, we're running the third version of our annual tech conference that we started, I funded back when I was finance minister, called Imagine. It's going to be held at the Chennai Trade and Convention Center. Many of the people here have spoken there before, will speak again. I just checked with the principal. I think at least some of your faculty are attending. I think student passes are free. So if any of you want to attend, please reach out through the principal. We'll make arrangements. We got a brilliant set of speakers from all over the world, pioneers in their respective fields, from Europe, from the US, from Singapore, from Australia, from all over. I think it'll be a brilliant opportunity again. Our ambition in these things is A, to showcase what is already happening in Tamil Nadu, but B, the slogan we have is inform, inspire, innovate. We want to inform our youth, we want to inspire them with people like Sid Ahmed, people like Cecil, people like Ganesh, who have been there, done that, and can be examples for you that you also can go and do these things. And then hopefully we start innovating from the young minds who are not yet set in their thinking, as sometimes older people are. So thank you very much for inviting me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and congratulations again to the team. Thank you.